Here on the Harerei Kedem page, Reish Yuda Aleph, Moadim Chelik Beis, on the left column, Gimel. Rav Soloveitchik is perplexed about the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu's name has been omitted from the Hagadah shel Pesach. And he quotes the Vilna Gaon, who says the following: there's a separate halacha in Geulas Mitzrayim. It says Ani Hashem, and Chazal say Ani v'lo shliach, Ani v'lo acher. And therefore, says the Gaon, we do not mention the name of Moshe Rabbeinu in the Sipur HaGeula. We only mention Hashem Yisparach. And he quotes a medrash in Tehillim, Upduye Hashem Yeshuvun. And it says Peduye Hashem, Velo Peduye Elio, Velo Peduye Melech HaMashiach El Peduye Hashem. So the medrash here in Shir Hashirim of Ani Hashem Velo Acher, that din applies to all the Geulos, even to the Geulas Sida, and not just to Geulas Mitzrayim. But the Rav adds something else. It says in the Medrash Shir Hashirim, Al Mishkavi Baleilos Bikashtias Shava Nafshi Bikashti V'lo Mitzasiv. And the Medrash says the following: Al Mishkavi Baleilos Zel Laila Shel Mitzrayim. On that very night of the 15th of Nisan in Mitzrayim, Bikashtias Shava Nafshi, I was seeking out my beloved Zeb Moshe. That's a reference to Moshe. Bikashti v'lo mitzasiv. So what does that mean? I didn't find Moshe Rabbeinu. So the commentaries say that in Golus Mitzrayim, Moshe was not included in the Golus Mitzrayim. Okay, fine. But another approach could be that what the Medrash means by Zel Laila Shel Mitzrayim, that means on the night of the Geula Mitzrayim, Leil Pesach, and this is the night that we dedicate to Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim, and a person would want to express his gratitude to Moshe Rabbeinu, and Hashem likewise would Kaviyachol recognize the role of Moshe Rabbeinu. On this, it says that Klal Yisrael Bikashti V'lo Mitzasiv. On this night of Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim, we looked for Moshe Rabbeinu, and we don't find him. He's not there. He's not mentioned anywhere in the Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim. And the reason for that is because in Geula, in redemption, we don't mention anybody other than HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. Bil Adav Ein Lanu Melech Goel Moshiach. The Rambam in Perek Zayin, Milchus Chametz Umatz Halacha Beis, in formulating the response to the Ben HaChacham, writes, Lefi Daito Shel Ben Aviv Malamdo. And the answer should be appropriate for the level of the child. Ketzad, Im Hayakatan O Tipesh, if he was very young or he was limited intellectually, Omer Lo B'ni Kulanu Ayinu Avadim, K'mo Shivcha Zu, or K'mo Eved Zeh B'Mitzrayim. He gives it a physical expression. Take a look. There's an Eved, there's a Shivcha. That's what we were in Mitzrayim. And then he adds, and on this night, God redeemed us and freed us from slavery. But if his son was more mature, he was young but very wise for his age, then Modio Mashe'ira Lanu b'Mitzrayim, he should notify him about what happened to us in Mitzrayim. V'nisim shenasu lanu al yidei Moshe Rabbeinu, and the great miracles that transpired through Moshe Rabbeinu. Hakol lefi daito shel ben. So this Rambam seems to be a contradiction to everything we said until now, namely that Moshe Rabbeinu's name is mentioned in Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim in the response to the Ben HaChacham V'tzorch Iyun. We don't find Moshe Rabbeinu's name mentioned anywhere in the Hagadah, and yet the Rambam seems to require that when we respond to the Ben Hagadah, we should tell him about Moshe Rabbeinu. Furthermore, the Rambam mentions Moshe Rabbeinu only as an answer response to the Ben HaChacham, but not with regard to the other children. Van Nira, here we turn to page Reshut Beis. The Medrash in Shirashim says, Kimat she'avarti mehem ad shematzasi es shalva nafshi ze Moshe, ad shevesiv el beis imi ze Sinai, el cheder horasi ze Oel Moed. So even though Knesset Yisrael is on a project to seek out Moshe, and she doesn't find Moshe Rabbeinu on the night of the Geula in Leil Pesach, because the Geula is exclusively Lashem. But we do, and she does find Moshe Rabbeinu at Har Sinai at the time of the Nesinas HaTorah. And the Torah is considered both Torahs Hashem and Torahs Moshe, as the pasuk says, Zichru Torahs Moshe Avdi. And according to this, perhaps we can explain the response dafka to the Ben HaChacham. Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim to the Ben HaChacham, we're not going to tell him just the Sipur HaGeula and that's it. Just tell him the story of the Geula. But rather we tell him the purpose of Yetzias Mitzrayim. What was the ultimate goal? What was the agenda? And that is, as Moshe Rabbeinu was notified at the Sneh, B'tzeischem Mitzrayim tavdun es Elokim al har hazeh. The tachlis of Yetzias Mitzrayim is to become Avdei Hashem by receiving the Torah at Har Sinai, as Rashi points out on the pasuk Bavur Zeh Os Hashem Li Bavur Shakayem Mitzvosav. Hashem did all these great miracles for me and redeemed me from Mitzrayim in order that I should fulfill his mitzvahs. Therefore, we need to be mesaper to the Ben HaChacham Bar Chava in a broader, more all-encompassing method of everything that happened until Matan Torah. And therefore, when we're speaking to the Ben HaChacham, the din requires that we reach out to him even to teach him the halachas of Pesach, like Ein Maftir Nachar Pesach Afikoman. We have to teach him the dinim of Leil HaPesach. And therefore, dafka to the Ben HaChacham, where the mitzvah Sipur Yitzrayim involves the entire complex and the purpose of Yetzias Mitzrayim, the ultimate goal, which is namely Matan Torah, here there's room to mention Moshe Rabbeinu's name. As it says in the Medrash that we quoted earlier, Shebe Matan Torah Matzasi es Shava Nafshi es Moshe Rabbeinu. So this is the halacha of an answer to the Ben HaChacham that we find in Hagadah, a special response to the Ben HaChacham in which we teach him the dinim of Leil HaPesach. And once we have that broader definition of Sipur with regard to the Ben HaChacham, then we have to teach the Ben HaChacham that Yetzias Mitzrayim is just a stepping stone, the goal of which is Matan Torah. And here there's room to mention the name of Moshe Rabbeinu. My only comment on this piece, it's a beautiful piece, is that in the language of the Rambam, which is quoted here on the bottom of the previous page, the Rambam's response to the Ben HaChacham is Nisim Shenasa Lanu Al Yidei Moshe Rabbeinu. Is that a reference to Matan Torah? He's referring to Moshe Rabbeinu in Mitzrayim. He says, Modia Mashe'ira Lanu b'Mitzrayim, v'Nisim Shenasa Lanu Al Yidei Moshe. I don't know if that has anything to do with Har Sinai. Again, in the Medrash, it's a good pshat. But in the Rambam, okay. Now, let's see where we could pick this up. Let's try ratio Dalet. Afilu kulanu chachamim. The Rambam writes, mitzvahs aseh shel Torah l'saper b'nisim v'niflos. B'yafal pi she'en lo ben, afilu chachamim gdolim chayovim l'saper b'yitzias Mitzrayim v'chol hamarech b'dvarim she'iru v'shahoyu areza meshubach. So the Rambam here has combined three different dinim. And we're trying to figure out what's the common denominator that links these three together. Number one, that there's a chiyuv to be mesaper liatzmo, even if he doesn't have a ben. And he combines that with afilu kulanu chachamim. Well, what's the connection? And then he has kol amar v'lesaper areza meshubach. And the Rambam integrates all these 3 points into one halach. There's got to be some common link between them. First, we're going to address the 2 out of the 3 that appear at the beginning of the Rambam, and that is afilu ein lo ben, afilu chacham gedolim. And then let's see if we can combine that with the halach of kol amar v'lesaper. The chiyuv of ribui sipur is not just to give a lengthy presentation. That's not the ultimate goal. But rather, it's an obligation to be mechadesh some part of the sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim that he's never revealed. To add a new dimension, a new clarification to the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim. And that's why the Rambam emphasizes legalos ulodia. Now that word lodia appears in Halacha Beis, mitzvah lodia labonim. So lodia only applies if he has a ben. If he doesn't have a son, and his son can't enhance the understanding of Yetzias Mitzrayim, then lodia liatzmo. He himself should try to be mechadesh and add new dimensions to the sipur of Yetzias Mitzrayim. And that's called lodia. And therefore, if that's what it means, that even if he doesn't have a son, he's going to be modia to himself, he himself is going to be mechadesh new insights, then how much more so if kulanu chachamim, kulanu nevonim, there must be an obligation to be mosif and modia. If when he's alone and he doesn't have a son, he has to be mosif and modia, how much more so if he has a son? And not only that, how much more so if kulanu chacham, kulanu nevonim, we have the capacity to understand the Hagadah and delve into its deeper meanings and reveal them. Certainly, anything that he adds in modia to the sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim is absolutely embellishes the mitzvah. But now we have another principle, another din that's called kol amar b'lesaper areza meshubach. And we're saying that Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim is not completed, it's not exhausted by just telling the facts of Yetzias Mitzrayim and overviewing the history of Yetzias Mitzrayim, but rather there's a chiv to be machadish and to be mosif in each detail, deeper and deeper. And that's why we said that even if he has no son, he still has that chiv lodia ula hosif ula chadish. And that applies even if we're chacham nevonim. The chiv is to be misabik, to be mechadish, new dinim, new dimensions of Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. So we now have a common link between all these three dinim that are formulated by the Rambam in Perek Zayin Halacha Aleph, and they're all based on this word modia, which means that he tells his son new insights, and if he has no son, he'll tell himself new insights. And even the gathering at the Hagadah, at the Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim, is of Chachamim and Gedolim, Nevonim. We still are obligated, maybe Dafka now, we're obligated to be Mechadish and Modia. And Kol Amar Harerei Meshubah. I mean, this is so typical of Rav Soloveitchik, of his very personality. His personality comes through between the lines here in this presentation. Now the Rambam writes, Shekol Hamarbe L'Saper. He doesn't write Vichol Hamarbe, that's our girsa, but rather Shekol Hamarbe. So why does the Rambam add the shin, Shekol Hamarbe? And the answer is that's called Nesinas Tam. The Rambam had just formulated the halach that afilu kulanu chacham mitzvah aleinu l'saper. And why? If we're all chachamim, then we know the story. What's the point in repeating the story year in and year out? It seems like an exercise of futility, but the answer is key. And that means shekol ha'mesaper. The shin of shekol ha'mesaper is like a key. Chaf yud. Not a key to open a door. And it means that there's no end. There's no gvul or kitzvah to the chiyuv of sipur. And to be megal the nes. Is then we understand the shin of shekol, meaning the nesinas tam. Why is it that afilu kukolim chachamim mitzvah saper? It's because we have to delve deeper into Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. We have to mechadish chidushim, shed new lights. La hosif legalos dvarim b'sipur shel Yetzias Mitzrayim, and therefore, even if we're chachamim nevonim, or as I said, dafka for chachamim nevonim, we have a mitzvah l'saper l'samek b'tzias Mitzrayim l'chadish chidush la hosif legalos dvarim b'sipur shel Yetzias Mitzrayim. Now, what does it mean? Afilu kulanu zikenim. Zikenim means chachamim smuchim ledin. They can sit on the Beis Nagol. V'chein afilu kulanu chachamim, kulanu nevonim, kulanu yodim es haTorah. These are three levels of chachma, bina, v'das. Kulanu chachamim, kulanu nevonim, kulanu yodim. Kulanim Yodim Es HaTorah. And this fits in very well to Rav Soloveitchik's approach to the mitzvah of Sipur, that it has to be framed in the context of Talmud Torah. Baruch HaMakom Baruch Hu Baruch Shenasan Torah L'Yama Yisrael. And in Talmud Torah, the more that we can embellish, to be mosif, to add, lisamek, to be mechadish chidushim in Torah, the greater is the limud, the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. The Rambam in the Perek Zion says that the obligation of this night is not just Sipur, but also Lidrosh, V'lilmod es inyonei Yitzias Mitzrayim. And the Rambam writes, Kol HaMosif U'marach B'drash Parsha Zu Harerei Zeh Meshubach. There's a chiyuv to darshan the Parsha of Harami Oved Oved. And that's not just to L'saper Sasipurim, but it's a chiyuv of limud, to study the Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim. And that's V'Hagadah. The word V'Hagadah comes from the pasuk V'Sagid L'Bnei Yisrael. It says Kol Tomar L'Beis Yaakov V'Sagid L'Bnei Yisrael. So the word V'Hagadah L'Bincha means Talmud Torah. And the word Hagadah also in Chazal is used to refer to Hagadah. And back in the day, there were certain experts, Chachamim, that was specialties in Hagadah. Like, for example, the Gemara on Daf Kuf Tes Zayin, Pesach says, Shiltinu, L'Rabbanan to Beirav Yosef, Mandi Omer Hagadah to Beirav Yosef. So that word Hagadah means Hagadah. And the root of the word in Lashon Kodesh is Hagadah. So what's V'Hagadah L'Bincha? Targum Yonasan, Shmos Yud Gimel, says V'Hagadah L'Bincha, says Targum Yonasan, V'Tisnei L'Bincha, teach your son. So it's a chiyuv of limud, not just a chiyuv of sipur. And with regard to Talmud Torah, obviously there's no limit to mitzvah shein lo kitzvah, v'gisa b'yom v'layla, and therefore kol amar b'l'sapri tzisraim areza meshuba. We are now on page Reish Tes Vav. And Rav Soloveitchik says the following: halachically, the time for Kriyat Shema Shel Shachris is Misha Yakir. As early as, there's a little bit of dawn of light, and he can differentiate between Tchelis and Lavan. When is the Sofzman Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim? Is that would be Balos HaShachar, when the sun actually rises and can be seen on the horizon, it appears on the horizon. It came Lama Imshichu B'Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim Gam Liachar Shekola Zman HaPesach. Let's see if we can understand this kasha. Oh, I see. I think what he's saying is the following: that Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim is a mitzvah halayla, and the next day, in halachic terms, begins with halos hashachar, when it's still dark out. Like if you ever wake up early, like let's say on a fast, and you want to eat breakfast, and you do it before halos hashachar, at that point it's really pitch dark out. When did the Talmidim tell them it's time to stop? That's after Zman Kriyat Shema, which is Mishayakir. That's already when there's light out. So it seems like they continued with their Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim even beyond the Chiyuv, which would have terminated at Alos HaShachar. And Rav Soloveitchik leaves it as an open-ended question. And this is a mission at the end of the first parak in Brachos. The Rambam has Omer Lehem Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, which means on that very night that they were mesubin, they were joining together in Bnei Brak for the Leil HaSeder, for the Suda. That's when Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah told them, Harerei ani kivem shivim shana. Now, on the night of Pesach, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah is going to tell them that the mitzvah of Zechiras Yetzias Mitzrayim applies not only during the day, but also at night. Why would they interrupt the mitzvah of Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim, 5 great Tanoim in Bnei Brak that are reciting the Hagadah? Now, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah gets up with a whole drasha about the mitzvah of Zechiras Yetzias Mitzrayim. Zechiras Yetzias Mitzrayim is a mitzvah that applies the whole year round. It's not part of Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim. So I thought that this is considered part of Hilchas HaPesach in the broadest sense. It's because it's Yetzias Mitzrayim all over again. In other words, there's a mitzvah of Zechiras Yetzias Mitzrayim that's also at least an auxiliary mitzvah and halacha in Hilchas HaPesach. In the next small paragraph, he says, "In Belel Pesach yesh chiyuv shel Zechiras Yetzias Mitzrayim shel kol hashana." He's unsure about whether the mitzvah of Zechira that applies all year round applies even on Leil HaPesach. The Yesh Lomer, Hadin Zechiras Mitzrayim is kai b'chiv shel Sipur Mitzrayim aviyuchad Leil HaPesach lo noeg hachiv Zechira shel kol hashon. In other words, Yesh B'chal Masayim Mana. Once he's fulfilling the mitzvah of Sipur, then Memela included in the Sipur is Zechiras Yetzias Mitzrayim. Baruch HaMakom Baruch Hu, Baruch Shanasa Tov Mitzvah Sipri Tzisrai B'Lo Pesach Kiyumo B'Drash Parshas Arami Ovi. As the Rambam says in Perek Zayin Halacha Dal V'Husha Yidrash MeArami Ovi Ad Gemar Kol HaParsha V'Chol HaMosif V'Marach B'Drash Parshas Zureis HaMeshubach. And the Kiyum of Sipri Tzisrai is through the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, by learning in Yodei Yitzias Mitzrayim, and therefore we have to know that we can darshan the entire parsha with the midos HaTorah Nidreshes by him. The Zoe Hatsura Shel Talmud Torah. How do we fulfill the mitzvah of Talmud Torah? We have Torah Shebechsav, and then we have Torah Shebal Peh. We derive from the midos HaTorah Nidreshes by him, new halachos, new insights, new interpretations. V'meila pshita sheish chiyuv bracha lifnei kiyum zeh. V'nir damiras baruch hamakom shenasan Torah l'Yisrael havi birchas HaTorah al chiyuv Talmud Torah shel sipur. But I don't know why there's no Shevu Malchus. He says, "Lefize yesh od yishuv al kushas achronim rishonim achronim. My time a brach al siput Yisrael bemes habrachi birchas baruch hamakom shehi birchas haTorah." Just 1 second. When do we say baruch hamakom? Where is my? Oh, I have our Hagadah here. Right before the Daled Banim. Yeah, but Rabbi Losman Azariah, we said that's going to be a problem. Okay. Umavur kan de kneged abba bonim dibur Torah v'hainu the ikar mitzvah shel sipur v'gadet al bincha v'yesh arba ufanim shel sipur kneged arba bonim v'nei yesh la'ayin de b'mishnah v'kiddushin chavtesam and alf tanan v'maslisin chiyuvei aben al ha'av k'mo mila v'limud Torah v'yesh la'ayin ma'itame hishmir atana es chiyuv sipur tzis Mitzrayim to humei ha-mitzvah sha'av chayav b'bno. You see, I would say the following: that in the case of Talmud Torah, the father's obligation is to see to it that the child fulfills his mitzvah of Talmud Torah. In the case of Milah, the father's obligation is to see to it that the child is nimal. In other words, the child needs Milah. And in fact, if the father doesn't do it, then when the child is old enough, he'll have to do it. But Vigadet Bincha, that's a whole different story. This is the obligation of Hagadah Vigadet that's exclusively obligatory on the father. That's his personal chiyuv. If he has a son, if he doesn't have a son, then he'll tell himself, but he has a chiyuv of Hagadah. So it's not exactly chiyuvei ben al ha'av. Alternatively, maybe it's included as a subset of Talmud Torah, Lamdo Torah. Okay, then. This is where we'll stop. Thank you very much. We covered a lot of material here. And I'll wish you a great day. Shkach. Thanks.